On February 10, 1966, a 30-year-old Harvard graduate is set to testify in front of Congress. He was self-assured and he spoke at length, quoting shocking statistics, laying down legal verbiage. But beneath the surface of his testimony hummed a finely calibrated sense of outrage. This outrage would spark a revolution that would open America's eyes, igniting a nationwide reaction, opening a road to reform, and forever altering the route of the automobile industry. World War II broke the back of the Great Depression and ushered in a period of prosperity. The 50s were a time where Americans moved like they had never moved before. New car sales accelerated from 6.7 million in 1950 to 7.9 million in 1955, and cars on the road jumped from 40 million in 1950 to over 60 million in 1960. These shining new cars would cruise along President Eisenhower's new, revolutionary interstate highway system. For the first time, America had a fast lane. The prosperity ignited in the 50s peaked in the stormy 60s, a decade that would spark revolutions that would lead to radical reforms. The civil rights movement, the feminist movement, and an unforeseen revolution that would be sparked by the blood of thousands of Americans on the blacktop. But help was around the corner. A revolutionary would emerge. His name, Ralph Nader. Born in 1934 to Lebanese immigrants, Nader was studious and bright. He loved the Yankees and Lou Gehrig, the works of the early muckrakers, and reading issues of the Congressional Record. His parents preached citizenship and encouraged him to become a people's lawyer. In 1955, after graduating from Princeton, Nader enrolled at Harvard to pursue a law degree. During his time at Harvard, Nader witnessed a deadly car crash which sparked his interest in the design of automobiles.
I used to hitchhike a great deal, and one time I saw a particularly gruesome crash where the head of a young child had been decapitated, and I realized that the sharp edge of the glove compartment door was the instrument.
April 11, 1959, marked the beginning of Nader's criticism about the car industry. He published The Safe Car You Can't Buy, in which he wrote, "It is clear that Detroit today is designing automobiles for style, cost, performance, but not for safety." In 1964, Nader moved to Washington, D.C., where he worked as a part-time consultant on auto safety for Assistant Secretary of Labor Daniel Patrick Moynihan. During the summer of '64, Nader would meet Richard Grossman, who was interested in publishing a book on auto safety. Ralph Nader was the man for the job, and he had just the vehicle.
Go, man, go! Go for true sports car feel and handling. Go for thrills and excitement. Go for the powerful thrust of turbocharged scat.
Light, fast, and economical, the Chevrolet Corvair was the 1960 Motor Trend's Car of the Year. But beneath its sporty exterior, the Corvair's revolutionary rear-mounted engine and suspension system made it susceptible to rollovers at speeds as low as 25 miles per hour.
1960-63 Corvair, which has some remarkable characteristics. It's one of the few cars I know that can do the bossa nova on dry pavement and the Watusi on wet.
With pen and paper, Ralph Nader branded the car unsafe at any speed.
Well, the Corvair had two costs and one benefit. One cost was it was the climax of the trade-off between safety and style, with style winning. Second, it killed a lot of people. And third, it was so bad that it became a paradigm, what was wrong with the auto industry, and set the stage for the federal regulation of the auto industry for safety and pollution control.
Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, created consumer reaction that resulted in a decline of Corvair sales from 220,000 in 1965 to a little over 100,000 in 1966. By 1969, production had fallen to 6,000. The book ignited negative reaction. Car company executives stated safety doesn't sell and refused to make reforms. Harry Barr, GM's vice president of engineering, retorted, "We feel the driver's most important. If the drivers do everything they should, there wouldn't be accidents, would there?" The Corvair's manufacturer, General Motors, reacted by hiring private investigators to discredit Nader. Mysterious people followed him. Anonymous voices phoned him. Suspicious women approached him, and his friends were questioned. These tactics were exposed in the media, forcing GM to issue a press release. GM initiated a routine investigation to establish whether Ralph Nader was assisting the pending lawsuits against GM on the Corvair's design. But the fact remained, Nader had previously testified against the automobile industry and was a congressional witness. Harassing a witness is a federal crime. On March 22, 1966, during congressional hearings, GM apologized to Nader.
I want to apologize here and now to the members of this subcommittee and Mr. Nader. I sincerely hope that these apologies will be accepted.
That Goliath is misbehaving, not just with the spy, but also with creating these unsafe vehicles. That really made it an exciting narrative.
This hearing sparked public reaction, creating a consumer revolution and paving a road to automobile reform.
In this century, more than 1,500,000 of our fellow citizens have died on our streets and our highways. Nearly 3 times as many Americans as we've lost in all of our wars.
As a reaction to public pressure, on September 9, 1966, President Johnson signed the National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act, coupled with the Highway Safety Act. These reforms empowered the federal government to set and enforce safety standards for motor vehicles and highways. As a consequence, the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration was created. Its purpose? To save lives and prevent injuries, creating safety reforms through research. On July 20, 1972, the NHTSA concluded that the 1960 through 63 Corvairs were as safe as comparable cars.
People would use them like they were sport cars, and they weren't. They weren't tough enough to be a sports car. But the one I had was a little old 4-door sedan, and gosh, I don't know how many miles I drove it, so it was a dandy little car.
However flawed Nader's attacks on the Corvair may have been, the consumer protection revolution resulted in new safety reforms for automobiles.
Imagine if you got in a car and the airbag said Nader on it. You know, like how everything says Trump on buildings? If the airbag said Nader, or if the seatbelt said Nader, if people would see that on a day-to-day basis, they'd understand the effect that this guy has had on their daily lives.
Seatbelts, energy-absorbing steering wheels, head restraints, and stronger side doors. Seatbelts alone reduce fatalities by 42%. Historical data from the Department of Transportation indicates that these reforms resulted in fatality rates falling from 5.3 deaths per 100 million miles driven in 1965 to a low of 1.14 deaths in 2009. A negative consequence of these safety reforms for automobile manufacturers was a reduction in revenues by 1 to 3% due to costly recalls. In the final analysis, due to the national exposure of the Corvair and the safety reforms that followed, 5% fewer fatalities occurred, saving an estimated 25 million lives annually. Because of this consumer revolution, the automobile industry is now held accountable for the engineering of its products. These safety reforms brought about by this consumer revolution instilled the idea that people should come before profits.
From a legal sense, we can't make cars if they're not safe. So if we don't make cars that fit federal regulations, we can't be a company.
The idea that better engineering can mitigate the loss of life on our nation's highways has become an acknowledged belief. It has brought our nation revolutionary reforms, paved a road to safer car designs, and fastened America to safety.